Today, on Ants Are Everywhere, we're looking at Freeciv, which is a clone of Civilization, the popular empire building game from the 90s. I've downloaded Freeciv. It looks like this. Looks like an old school game. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just moving around. And there's some map, and you have some civilization. I'm not sure who I am. I guess I'm the Sumerians. It seems like maybe we have population 0. I don't know. It seems like I have units. I don't know what the population 0 means. Maybe it's in like units of thousands or 10,000s or whatever. We have some amount of gold. We have tax and lux, which is probably maybe luxury in science. And there's a chat on the bottom, but its font is too small to read. And I don't even know where it went. And we can do things like we can look at tax rates. And we see that tax is at 40%. Luxury, I'm not sure what that means, but can I adjust these? No. Okay, so these are measurements of where I'm at. We also see things like economy. I guess economy is not very informative at the very beginning of the game. And research, I'm guessing I don't have much research. But oh no, we get a research tree. Maybe I'm here. Maybe that's what yellow means. I have pottery, which the Sumerians did have. And then you can see there's over here, there are the things that are ancient, things like the alphabet, ceremonial burial, masonry, etc. Horseback riding. I think horseback riding came a little bit later, but that's fine. And then over here we get things like writing. Although I think writing predated the alphabet, so I'm not sure this is correct historically. But we also have things like mathematics. And then I'm guessing these are like flowing through, maybe like you need masonry to get mathematics because of geometry. And then we have things like construction, seafaring, astronomy, etc. So I wanted to explore this game because I want to start looking more at repos that deal with things like society, modeling society. And I thought it would be fun to start with something simple and basic, which is a game where there's like a clear beginning and end. You're playing against other players. So it's not entirely like you're on rails. But there's a theory of what society is, how economics work, and that's kind of built into the game. And I thought it would be interesting to look at how that sort of stuff is modeled. Yes, I'm sure I want to quit. And so let's pull that up. I had it pulled up, but then I think I restarted. Freeciv. Let me get more centered here. Okay, so I believe it's in C. Is it in C? Yeah, C. 86.7% C. Almost 7% C++. Is that the red? And then a little bit of Python, presumably for things like build scripts and testing. A little bit of shell, presumably the same sort of thing. And that's all. And I don't know where all of the cool stuff is going to be. So we have this Freeciv organization. Let's see if they have any other repos that are worth knowing about. We have the Freeciv web, which I'm going to assume is like a web client. I don't know if it's a re-implementation or if it plays a Freeciv game served by this Freeciv repo that we're looking at currently. And we have the website is presumably here we go, freeciv.org. That's like the landing page for the project as a project. And then we have Freeciv environments. I don't know what that's about. And a meta server. Okay. So we're in the right place. We have AI. I'm going to guess AI is like the game AI, probably an old school game AI. I don't know if they would use something like A-star search. I don't know how AI is going to work in a like turn-based strategy game like this. But they probably have to do things like make sure that they walk around mountains or barriers and stuff like that. We have a server. I'm going to just guess that the server is like a thin layer that just is handling the networking stuff, and that's not the main implementation, but we'll open it up. We have tests. It's always great to see tests. Translations is important, but we're not going to look at it. And what else? They're using Meson as a build system. There should be more folders. Maybe platforms, probably not. Lua should be scripting. Lua might be interesting. Dependencies might be like third-party dependencies. Common and data might be where to be. We also have Bootstrap and client. And again, I'm going to guess that client and server are sort of two sides of the same coin. Although maybe not. We have advisors in server. We have advisors, generator, rule set, and save game. What's an advisor? Advice go to, advice city, advice eval calc city. I'm not sure what that is. Add tools. Amortize. To prevent integer overflows. The product power times HP times firepower is divided by power divider. Okay. So that's some rescaling. Although we do see some game logic, it seems like. So mort is 24. Is that mortality? I'm not sure. Add wants equal. Or EQ. I'm guessing it's probably equal, but it's going to take two W's. This is a relative. Okay, so this is just a relative comparison for float. We have some epsilon. I don't know what FC is, but we're just checking whether two floats are close to epsilon in absolute value. And then doing some other kind of scaling stuff, it looks like over on the side here. All right, so I think that this is not where we want to be. Let's double check client. We've got, this is mainly like GUI stuff. We have a GTK GUI. Or rather, three of them. We have Qt GUI. I don't know what SDL is. Here's a stub. That might be something that's common to everything. And then we have includes in Lua script. We have things like chat. But I'm going to guess that's the GUI side of chat. So we're going to kind of plow along and see if we can find anything especially interesting. We have this rule set stuff, these rule set tests. Rule set's not broken. Rule set's auto help. Rule set's upgrade in trailing spaces. Should we look at rule set's not broken? So the rule sets, try to load all the rule sets that are developed with Freeciv. Okay, so this is, I think, maybe not broken in the sense that the build isn't broken. We don't need that. Lua, we just have database.lua, which is going to create a SQLite database if it doesn't exist. That's the latest commit. And presumably it's going to read things from the database. So I'll assume that that's not cool. And then here in common, we have AI core, networking, and things that look game related, like calendar, citizens, chat, client, utils, combat, disaster, extras, generate packets, etc. So let's pull this out. I think this is where I want to be. And then what's in data? Data looks interesting. They have aliens. I didn't realize there were aliens. We have these .rule set files. I don't know if these are specific to Freeciv or if there's a general rule set file format. Okay, so data seems possibly interesting. We'll keep it alive. And then these other things are also possibly interesting, except Bootstrap is probably not so important. So let's do this. Let's minimize this Firefox window that has the AI and data folders. And let's focus on common. And we see a bunch of stuff. We see city, client utils. Let's look at city, both the header and the implementation. Combat, we'll look at the header. I'm not the most interested in combat. Culture, I am interested in. DIP treaty, I don't know what DIP means. Treaty is presumably something about a treaty. Disaster, I guess we'll look at. Effects, I'm not sure what effects are. Events are probably ordinary events, like an event system, like you see in other repos. FC interface, Freeciv, probably FC. FC types, we'll look at Freeciv interface and Freeciv types. The game itself, you might as well look at the header and the game. Generate packets, that's a Python file. I'm wondering if that's for generating packets for testing. Government.h and government.c we'll look at. IDEX is presumably a spelling of index. Improvement might be things that you learn in Freeciv. We have maps, which are going to have presumably tiles. Map types, map image, meta knowledge. We'll look at that. We'll just look at, I guess, a lot of these. Movement, sure, we'll look at movement. Multipliers might be interesting. Nation will definitely be interesting. Oblig recs, obligatory maybe requirements, like things, maybe things you have to learn. The player will look at rec text, I guess. Requirements.h we'll look at. Road, RGB color. I'm going to not look at the RGB stuff. Research, I will look at. Then there's like server settings and sex and spaceship. Sex and spaceship, I guess we have to look at. I don't know if it's really about sex or if it's about population level, like reproduction stuff. I don't think I saw tax. Did we see tax? No. And then we also have AI core here. So there's the AI folder in the other window, but we'll look at AI core here. Okay. So should we start with city? I don't know if we want to start with city. Let's start maybe with sex, I guess. So first, I just want to get a general feel for like what the coding style is like. What, like how low level is it versus high level, that sort of stuff. Copyright 1996. Okay, so we have some type defs, and the sex is either unknown, which is -1, or female or male, which is 0 and 1. Okay, so this is like sex in the sense of I thought this was sex in the sense of reproduction. This is like demographics. And we have a sex rule name, a name translation, and a mnemonic. I'm guessing that rule names, name translations, and mnemonics are maybe things that are that exist for every type. And this really feels just kind of like a type definition. I don't know if there's anything interesting in implementation. These are just seems like kind of like setters and getters sort of stuff. Okay. Spaceship. We have spaceship.c. I don't know if I opened up the spaceship header, but we'll look at spaceship.c. We have some structural info. Spaceship part info structurals info. And it, I guess, indexed by the number of S structurals, the number of spaceship structurals. -1 means not required. I don't know what that means. 1913, 1915, 719. I don't know what these are about. Or 4, or 5. Initialize spaceship struct can be used to cancel a spaceship. For example, when capital is captured. Can also be used to cancel. So the init function can cancel. Can cancel. Why, I don't know. So the init function can cancel. Why, I'm not sure. But we have this spaceship init. It's going to take a player spaceship struct thing, a pointer to it. It's going to be void. So presumably the thing, you pass in something and you're going to get something out from the same parameter. And then we're going to look at the ship's structurals. Oh, sorry, we're going to set the ship's structurals to the ship components. No, we're going to set all of these things, the structurals, the components, and the modules to 0. So to 0 everything out. And then we're going to BV clear all on the ship structure. BV, I don't know. And we'll set the fuel and propulsion to 0. All of the things are 0. Solar panels, life support, habitation, state, etc., etc. Let's look at the header. So the spaceship looks like this. We have solar panels on the outside. These structural elements are these X's. And I'm not sure what these are. These are either habitations or life support, one of the two. And then the propulsion is on the right here. And the way that they work is, so here's the ASCII art. And this is like module 8. Solar panel 2 is out here. Module 2, solar panel 0 is here. So this is module 8, solar panel 2. This is whatever the other one is, solar panel 0. And the player can choose which sort of each to build. So I guess the player is going to build this spaceship. They can decide whether they want to build solar panels or life support first, but they can't decide to build solar panel 3 first. If they're going to build solar panels, they're going to build them in order. Solar panel 0, wherever 1 is down here, etc. And that's basically it. We have this struct that has like the things like how many of each part is built, the structurals, the components, the modules, etc. And that's really all I really wanted to get out of spaceships. And then this is the research tree. And the way it works is we have this rule set. It's called tex. This is the technology stuff. And it's building out this tree. Not that. It's building out this tree by these stanzas in the rule set file that are defining the adjacency graph. So for example, we'll pick like one in the middle. So advanced bridge building has a name called bridge building. I don't know what the underscore function is doing. Presumably maybe some sort of helper function. I don't think it's C syntax, but I'm not positive actually. So let's ask ChatGPT. Let's ask Gemini. It's not a function call. It's a macro. Okay, it's a macro invocation. It is specific syntax used in GNU get text library for internationalization and localization of text strings. Okay, so this is presumably going to just get the localized version of the string called bridge building in English. And also we have the requirements don't have the internationalization, although the help text does. But the requirements are ironworking and construction. We should be able to see that on the map. And then it has flags. I'm not really sure what the flag is, but the bridge. And then the graphic this is presumably going to load a graphic called a.bridgebuilding or a/bridgebuilding.png or something along those lines. And then the graphic alt is just a dash. I don't know what that means, but that's what it says. So bridge building is maybe one of these, or this is research. Yeah, here we go. Bridge building is here. It requires construction and ironworking. Just as we said, we don't list our descendants. I guess we just list our ancestors. And that's how it's done. This is like a is this the ML file format? TextML. No, I forget what this thing is called, but I think this is a common old school format. And we have a description of what the format uses, or rather, this is a description of the like semantics, I guess, of the format. So the name is a translatable name as seen by the user, which we figured out. The rule name is optional internal name for save games. If it's present, the name is used for this purpose too, etc., etc. Cost percent. How many texts of this class cost compared to normal? We didn't see that yet. Or maybe that's a different type of thing. I think this type of thing we were looking at is here. We've got a name, a rule name, a class, requirements, possibly a root requirement. The root requirement is tech required before acquiring this tech by any means. All texts with a direct or indirect dependency on this will also have this root rec, as well as their own and any others they inherit. Okay. Let's see if we see any root recs. They don't appear to be in this file. This is specifically Civ 1. I'm wondering if there's like multiple versions here. So we have Civ 2, Civ 3, and they have different rule sets. Okay, so a lot of it seems like for supporting these different versions, I guess a lot of the game logic is the same, and then the rule sets change, and that lets you change the rules of the game. So let's look again at, well, I don't know. Let's explore these rule sets more. Let's look at the tech rule set again. Does this have a root technology? Anywhere? We have ruled it tab tech. That's a code file. I don't know. I don't see really anything where the rule rec, so the root rec is set. Although here, gold keep. So maybe gold keep is a variant. All right, so that's the tech rule set that tells you what the tech tree is. Yeah. Oh, and Casper's telling me that underscore is usually used for internationalization. Thank you. I'll put this smaller so I can see it more easily. Okay. So then that's tech. Let's go to another one. How about let's pop this out and look at a bunch of these rule sets. So the governments, the game, I think will be the most interesting. Units. Styles, we can ignore. Script, I'll look at the Lua script. I don't know what it's going to be about. Nations, I think will be interesting. Cities. And I guess we'll look at all of these other ones. And then game we'll start with. Again, you should not modify this file. So these are the Civ 2, Civ 3 game rules for Freeciv. The section contains meta information for the Freeciv rule edit. Rule edit. I was reading it as ruled it. It's probably rule. I don't know. Rule edit to create the rule set. And we have a summary of the rule set. In the client, this is displayed alongside the blah, 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 blah. So there's some text that's. So we have things like sound, tile set, sound set. These are like tiles, sounds, music, the style. Cost and luxuries of making one citizen happier. So there's a happy cost, which is equal to 2. So I guess for every 2 luxuries, 1 citizen gets happier. I think. Cost and food of upkeeping a single citizen. So 1 citizen consumes 2 foods. I don't know if that means per turn, or if like food is like, I don't know if food has units of like how many you can sustain, or if it's just like you have like 2 corns and that person consumes them. And then the value added to city population, you have some base pollution is equal to -20. Oh, city pollution. I don't know when it's added to the base pollution. Maybe base pollution is common across all versions of the game, and then in Civ 2, we're going to take 20 below what the normal pollution is. We have some stuff about granaries. Granary food, presumably initial, is 2020, 20, 20, 20, 30, 30, 40. And then the food inc is 0. So parameters used to generalize the calculation of city granary size. If the city size is less than or equal to num in eyes, then the city granary size is equal to granary food I of city size times food box divided by 100. So if the, I guess, city size is 1, then granary food I of 1 would be 20, and we'll multiply 20 times food box over 100. And then if the city size is bigger than the number of ionize, then we're going to ask for the number of we'll pass in the number of ionize. And then we've got this food increment times a bunch of stuff, but food increment is 0. So I guess this doesn't matter in Civ 2 or something. Then we have some city minimum outputs. So minimum food, shelter, and trade, I guess, are all 0. Presumably these advance throughout the game. Although these are minimums, these might be constant, but I don't know if food increment advances through the game. The square of initial city radius. The squared radius is 5. Why? I don't know. There's a bribe cost, a base bribe cost modified heavily by other factors. Okay. So I guess the standard bribe is going to cost you $750, but that's going to change maybe depending on what sort of government you're in and stuff like that. A barbarian leader ransom is 100. And so on. Pillage select. Whether the player gets to select which terrain improvement to pillage. I guess that's for pillaging your enemies. And so on. Civil War is enabled as true. Civil War bonus celebrating, -5. How many percents each celebrating city affects chance of civil war? So if your city is celebrating, then you're less likely to have a civil war, I think. And then if you have an unhappy city, it's like the opposite of having a celebrating city. It contributes +5 to civil war. And so on. So there's lots here. This is pretty interesting. These are just like variables that are set, and they're going to be read during the game logic. You would maybe nowadays do this in something like JSON. So I'm going to move past the game rule set. Look at the government's rule set. During revolution, we have anarchy. I guess does that mean that if we are having a revolution, then the government type is anarchy? Maybe this rule set tells us like when you transition from like authoritarianism to democracy or whatever. So anarchy is maybe the beginning. And depending on if you're a warlord or a war lady, maybe that's something you set when you start the game. Anarchy is simply the absence of any recognizable government. Citizens are disorganized and unproductive and will spend all income as quickly as possible rather than paying taxes or conducting research. Buildings and technologies do not require any upkeep. Each worked tile that gives more than 2 food, shield, or trade will suffer a -1 penalty unless the city working it is celebrating. Okay. Base production waste is 30%. This increases with distance from the capital, half as fast with knowledge of trade. Okay, and then we have a tribal. That's, I guess, one up from anarchy. And something about tax, luxury tax. Under a tribal government, you are part ruler of your people. Your control over your citizens is maintained largely by spiritual council. Compared to despotism, a tribal economy is more shield-oriented. Its bonuses to veterancy can be an advantage in wartime, but it lacks the martial law of other early governments. Okay, and then we have despotism, which doesn't seem to have the... We have AI better as monarchy. Do we have AI better elsewhere? AI better than tribal is republic. There's no AI better than anarchy. So Casper's saying, if I recall correctly, there are a few turns of anarchy when switching between government types. Huh. That's interesting. I guess that makes sense. Especially if there's like a revolution. Is that what we saw? Maybe that's what you're responding to. Yeah, during revolution, that's anarchy. I think that's what you're saying. Maybe that when you're switching government, there might be a revolution, and then you have anarchy during that period. Okay, we have despotism. It seems to be saying this is maybe like dominated by monarchy. That makes sense. I think a despot is considered to be a bad monarch, if I remember my Aristotle or Plato correctly. Under despotism, you are an absolute ruler, or the absolute ruler of your people. Your control over your citizens is maintained largely by martial law. Compared to tribalism, a despotic economy is more trade-oriented. Okay. You get more gold. I guess that's one nice thing about being a despot. And there's this bunch of economic stuff. I don't know how you decide on these particular rules. I'm guessing maybe playtesting mainly, with some intuition. Unlike later governments, military units do not cause unhappiness even when deployed aggressively. Really? Why? Seems like military units would cause unhappiness in a despotic government. Military units impose martial law. Up to 3 military units inside a city will force one unhappy citizen to become content. Oh, Lord. Base corruption is 20%. This increases with distance from the capital. It seems reasonable. And base production waste is 10%. And then we have monarchy, where the title is a king. What's the title for despot? Chief? Okay, king and queen. Monarchy gives low unit upkeep costs. Under monarchy, king or queen serves the hereditary figurehead for your government. Okay, you've got some ecclesiastical stuff. You get a 50% bonus to gold production. And a bunch of economic stuff. Military units impose martial law. Base corruption is 10%, which I think is half of despotism. Is that right? Base corruption is 20% for this one, which I think is despotism. Okay. And then after monarchy, we have communism. It requires, I don't know what this means. It requires the communism tech. Is communism a tech? Well, feudalism is a tech. Maybe there are governments that are techs in Civ 2. Maybe also in Civ 1. We have feudalism, chivalry, monotheism. Maybe it's like over here to the right. I think I saw Republic before I just closed it. The Republic. Which Republic? Plato's Republic? Okay, and the title are Comrade and also Comrade. A communist government is based on the ideal that all people are equal. All goods are owned by the state rather than by private citizens. Communism gives a balance between military and commercial styles of government. Communism is a good government for maximizing shield production and for large empires. City improvements, which would normally have an upkeep of 1 gold, are free of upkeep. So it's cheaper. I think it's saying cancels the bonus from mysticism and theology, 2 temples and cathedrals. Each city can support up to 3 units for free, the maximum possible. Each city tolerates up to 3 aggressively deployed military units. Each further unit causes 1 unhappy citizen. Military units impose martial law. Up to 3 military units inside a city will force 2 unhappy citizens to become content, the maximum possible. Base corruption is 30%. But it is not affected by distance to capital. I don't know why it's not affected by distance to capital. So this is between monarchy, I guess, and despotism. You have fundamentalism. I'm guessing that's religious fundamentalism. So you have a high priest, or a high priestess. It's a form of government organized around a central set of beliefs. So basically a theocracy. The people are entirely devoted to their beliefs and usually willing to die to preserve them. Improvements that normally convert unhappy citizens to content citizens produce tithes, gold equivalent to the number of people they would convert, and require no maintenance. It's a good government for maximizing gold, and its fanatics are useful in wartime. But it has a heavy penalty to technological progress. Okay. Base science production is half that of other governments. Each city can support up to 2 units for free. They tolerate 2 aggressively deployed military units, and base corruption is relatively low, 15%. Then we have a federation with titles consul. Federalism is a system in which the power to govern is shared between national and provincial governments. Okay. You get 2 extra luxury points. Celebrating cities produce 1 extra trade. Each city tolerates up to 2 aggressively deployed military units. There's no base level of corruption. The decentralization minimizes the corruption and waste caused by distance to capital and avoids separatist movements. It doesn't say like what it's a good government for, like some of the other ones. And then we have a republic, which, if you believe Machiavelli, is the best form. Under a republican government, citizens hold an election to select a representative who will govern them. Since elected leaders must remain popular to remain in control, citizens are given a greater degree of freedom. Citizens under the republic become unhappy easily, but the self-sufficiency of your citizens allows high levels of trade. So cities produce an extra trade point for every worked land tile. That's already producing trade. This is about celebrating cities. I don't care so much about celebrating cities. Base corruption is 25%. So above the theocracy one. And I think above monarchy, is that right? This increases with distance to the capital half as fast with knowledge of the corporation. Half as fast. Wait, knowing about corporations makes you less corrupt? Base production waste is 5%. This increases with distance from the capital. Okay, and then you have a democracy, which has a prime minister. Under democracy, citizens govern directly by voting on issues. Democracy offers the highest possible level of trade, but also offers the most potential for unhappiness. Citizens become very upset during wars. Okay, so you get an extra trade point for every worked land, etc. They support 1 unit for free. Each city tolerates a single aggressively deployed military unit. Base corruption is 5%. That's the lowest I think we've seen. And production waste is 25%, which is relatively higher than some of the other ones we've seen. And then we have multipliers, aka policies, which is, I'm not sure what that is, but that's the end of the file. Okay, that's interesting. That tells us a little bit about how tells us a lot. In fact, it tells us everything about how Civ 2 and 3 are modeling governments. This is units. This is going to be about the different types of units. I think I'm going to move on from here. This is going to be like different military units, like caravan units, stuff like that. Boats, things like speed, the name, HP loss percentage. I guess what happens if you get hit or in battle and stuff like that. The script, I don't know what script.lua is going to be about. It is a Lua file. It's not a rule set. We have things like city destroyed callback. You tell it the city, the loser, and the destroyer. Place ruins at the location of the destroyed city. So we're going to call city.tile, create extra, ruins, nil. I don't know what the nil is doing there, but we're going to, whatever, continue processing, return false, and it seems like then we're going to connect city destroyed to city destroyed callback. I don't know why we need the loser and the destroyer, because it doesn't seem like we use them. Maybe we just have to accept those arguments in order for this signal to connect. We have this function surrounded by. Check if there's a certain terrain in all CA adjacent files. I don't know if C adjacent is a typo. And so on. So these are like helper routines to do things like replace tiles, check if tiles are surrounded by other tiles. There's a big else if statements about grasslands and stuff like that. Place map tiles. Add random labels to the map. We've got rivers, deeps, glaciers, etc., etc., etc. Count the tiles that has a terrain type that may get a label. So, okay, we're going to iterate, I guess, over the whole map. And they get the terrain and the terrain rule name. And if the place has extra river, then rivers is equal to rivers plus 1. I don't know what it means to have an extra river or have an extra deep ocean, etc. If terrain name is grasslands, then we're going to set grasslands to be grasslands plus 1, etc. And then we'll decide if a label should be included. And I don't know what any of that's doing, but we'll move on from here. Here's nations rule set. This should be the nations. I don't know what sort of information it's going to contain. Obviously, stuff like the name of the nation, maybe the terrain it's historically associated with, maybe what year it is in. I don't know. But we have just a couple of includes. So we're going to include nation / barbarian rule set, pirate rule set, and animals rule set. This rule set uses model of 2 separate barbarian nations. The value of trait aggressive defines how easily AI declares war. Okay, so that's like AI aggression, trader minimum, expansionist minimum. Let's see. Do we have the nations? How about pirate rule set? So we have a pirate nation. The groups is core barbarian. Legend. As long as honest men have sailed the seas, pirates have been a scourge to them, and of all coastal dwelling people. So we have a bunch of leaders, including Calico Jack, Anne Bonny, Francois Lolonais, Blackbeard, various pirate havens, New Province, Port Royal, Tortuga. Okay. So there's actually not a lot of information in that rules. Alaskan, these are different nations now. Aramean, Argentine, Armenian, Assyrian. Let's look at Assyrian. Assyria was an empire in the northern Mesopotamia, named after its capital, Ashur. And then we have Ashurbanipal, Ashurbanipal II, and some people I can't pronounce. And some cities like Ashur, Nineveh, Uruk. Is Uruk Assyrian? Is there like a Mesopotamian one? Sumerian. Yeah. So these are the Sumerian ones. Somewhere in here is Uruk, presumably, because that's how I found this file. Okay, Onog is Uruk. Iridug is Eridu. I don't know what the maybe this is like closer to the original Assyrian title. And the Civil War nations are Assyria, Egyptian, and Babylonian. I don't know if that means that after a civil war you might split up into these nations. And the ruler titles, we have anarchy and monarchy. So for anarchy, we have usurper is the title. And for monarchy, we have Lugal. And the leaders are people I don't think I've heard of. Ur-Nammu, Shulgi, Gilgamesh. Everyone's heard of Gilgamesh. Okay. That's actually the main thing I was wondering, is if Gilgamesh was in here. Okay. So that's Sumeria. There's a bunch of other rule sets. Here's cities. I think I'm good. I don't need to see cities. Effects. I'm just curious what sort of thing an effect is. There's cheat lux. Effect AI cheat lux. Lux is probably light. Cheat is probably cheating. AI cheating player. Oh, luxury. Lux is luxury. Okay. So there's different cheats. You can affect Barb 1, type no diplomacy. It has requirements, type, name, range, nation group, etc. Barbarian no waste by distance. So these are maybe like overrides or cheats or variations that you can affect the rule set with. And then actions. These are probably the things that you can do in your turn, like move, attack. Here we go. Capture units. These are like military stuff. Conquer, city, shrink, blocked by. So you can't conquer a city, I guess. Yeah, here we go. Forbid, conquer, city, shrink. I don't know what shrink means. If any of the listed actions are illegal. You can capture units, bombard, explode nuclear, I guess, nuke city, nuke units, attack, or suicide attack. The suicide attack is blocked by collect ransom, capture units, bombard, explode nuclear, nuke city, and nuke units. Okay. So this is all. I guess the thing I'm thinking is like, you can see why you would want to encode. It's easy to read this file. What I think is a little bit hard to reason about is how all of this stuff would interact. Like, it seems like it's possible that you make a change in one of the configuration files, and it may not be clear what effect it has down the line. And so there's some complexity there with respect to, like, you would really want to play test some stuff before you like go live with any change. I would suspect. I don't know how else you would do it differently, but it would be maybe there's like some tool that lets you, like, if I change something about, I don't know, enter hut, and it would be nice to know, like, what are the downstream changes of changing like enter hut. So, like, does it make nuking more likely somehow? That sort of stuff would be useful, and you can presumably do it by building up some sort of graph and simulating stuff. Buildings rule set. This is going to be about the buildings, the types of buildings. I guess sounds. Maybe like the airport has sound of planes. An aqueduct. The genus is, I guess, the type of the thing. What type of building is it? It's an improvement, I assume. It has some requirements. And the first line is, I think, in this pattern is the like the headings of a table. And so the tech requires, so there's a type of requirement that's tech. Which tech is it? It's construction. What is range? I don't know. Player. And I guess true means it's required to be present. Something along those lines. At any rate, construction is required for aqueducts. And you have to be, I guess, by a river or a lake or something. Here's something that with lots of comments. Allows a city to grow larger than size 8. A sewer system is required for a city to grow larger than size 16. Is this aqueduct? Okay, so if you need an aqueduct, if you're going to grow large enough, because I don't know if you guys know this, but humans produce waste and they require water. Okay, so that's actually like 99%. Those rule sets, I think, are 99% about what I wanted to see about Freeciv. I wanted to see like how they were modeling civilizations, how they thought about economy, and those sorts of things. I feel like it's not clear like how any of the decisions were made. Like reading through the governance file, or I forget exactly what it was called, but the stuff that had the type of government, like, are we a tribal government, or are we a monarchy? That stuff I think is mostly just kind of like read from history, and then they try to, well, the original Civilization game presumably tried to use intuition to figure out how to parameterize that properly, so that when you played a game, it felt like it was an accurate enough simulation that was also fun to play. But other stuff, the more detail oriented stuff, like how what's the tax rate, when do people celebrate? It seems like maybe that's just kind of going by your gut. But I think you could get far just trying to like work things out on pen and paper for rule sets like that, I would suspect. And then let's look at a little bit of the non-metadata code. We have requirements. This is just going to use the network protocol order is important. We have this C adjacent thing again, so I guess that was not a typo. Maybe like corner adjacent, like caddy corner sort of thing, like it's a off diagonal. So requirement is a struct. I don't know what universal means. So we have a requirement source, a range, whether it survives, if destroyed sources satisfy the requirement. So maybe like If you learn science, that probably survives the destruction of the city that learned science, but an aqueduct doesn't. Something like that. And then we have present set if the requirement is set to be present and quiet. Do not list this in help text. And so on. And the code-wise, it seems to be like a lot of just sort of setters and getters, getting strings, getting that sort of thing. In fact, we're going to get rid of all this common stuff. Player.c. This kind of looks like more of the same. Is valid alliance. So is valid alliance will look at two players. And we'll call players iterate alive on p player. Dipl state type ds is equal to player dipl state get of p1 and p player type. If p player is not equal to p1 and p player is not equal to p2 and ds is equal to ds war, do not count never met as war here. And p player is allied p2 and p player, return false. I don't know what any of this means. Dipl state is probably diplomatic state. I don't know. We're going to players iterate alive p player. Maybe this is iterating over the other players who are alive. And for the first player, we're going to look at like if Joe and Mary and Sam are playing. And we need to know if Joe and Mary can have an alliance. Maybe Sam is one of the p players being iterated over. We'll look if Joe and Sam are at like war or something. Players iterated alive is probably some preprocessor magic to simulate a for you. Yeah, I think that's right. I think that what this is essentially doing is like, there's like a kind of transitivity here. So like, I probably can't be your ally if you and I are also allies with players that are at war with each other. So if we're fighting a proxy war, it's probably not a valid alliance. I think is more or less what this is doing. But I'm not sure. And similarly, P player can make treaty. I don't know what P stands for. And we've got a dipl reason as a result. And some of the diplomatic states are DS. I guess DS is diplomatic state. So war, no contact, armistice, team, last. I don't know what team is. Maybe you can have teams composed of multiple players. The player has embassy. Check if P player has an embassy with P player too. We always have an embassy with ourselves. Okay. We'll call player has real embassy or player has embassy from effect. Okay. So this is interesting. These you play as like a whole nation, right? I think that's what maybe P player is like the person playing the game. And we've got a bunch of diplomatic states. So this is interesting. This is like not quite a rule set, but this is, I guess, the encoding for a lot of the rules around whether players can cooperate with each other or fight against each other and stuff like that. Here's player.h. We have player economic has gold, tax, science, luxury, and infra points. I don't know what infra points are. We have player statuses, which are normal, dying, winner, surrender, account. And the player score has a bunch of stuff, including whether they are happy, unhappy. So unhappy and happy, that's two different ints. They're not, unhappiness is not the opposite of happiness, I guess. Maybe happy is like how many happy cities you have, and unhappy is how many unhappy cities. And content, angry, specialists, wonders. Tax, tech out. I don't know what tech out is. Land area, settled, etc. Units built is the number of units this player has produced. Number of enemies killed. And so on. And some AI stuff. Okay. I don't think we really need to look at nation, but we'll scroll through it just to see if there's anything that jumps out. I think maybe, where are we for time? I think maybe the last thing I want to do is take a quick look at the AI stuff. Although I do want to know what meta knowledge is. Make eval rec. So some POV player, context, other context requirement, rec problem type. I don't know what that is. So I'll ignore it. This is map stuff, map image, map types. I'll just assume that we know more or less how that sort of thing goes. Improvements, I think, are going to be related to stuff like research and like building aqueducts and stuff. Although we have some graphic stuff. Improvement count, improvement by number. And it seems to also include things like wonders, like the wonders of the world. Like maybe the Hanging Gardens. The Colossus at Rhodes. I don't know what IDEX is, but we have registered. Remove a city from IDEX. I'm guessing IDEX is like an index. IDEX. IDEX equals ident index, identity index. A lookup table for quick mapping of unit and city ID values to unit and city pointers. Okay. So it's a map from values to pointers. So you can look up a thing and get a reference to it or pointer to it. Government, we saw a lot of government stuff in the rule set. I don't think we need to really, this is like things like look up the government by the player, etc. And then game, I don't think we looked at it at all. But this is going to be like turn taking, etc., etc. Maybe some stuff to set up the server. Ransom gold. This is some giant struct, right? Struct, only used in the server, AI and server, defined in the rule set, game settings, and other data. This is a bunch of data that are set from the rule set. Okay, so we're going to ignore all of this. Disaster, dip treaty, culture, combat city, and we'll look at AI. AI core, and that we looked at already, and this Freeciv/AI. We have things like difficulty, handicaps, AI traits. This, I think, is more like configuration, and AI core is maybe the actual algorithms. Set level director, AI level help, AI fuzzy, AI traits, get value, etc. Here's AI traits.c. I don't know what TDM is. TDM fixed, TDM even. Free resources associated with the player AI traits. Okay, so this is kind of like metadata stuff. I don't need Emacs right now. So let's look at AI core. We have pathfinding. I'm guessing that's A star. That's usually the thing. PF tools. I don't know what that would be. CM, city map, caravan, AI support. So pathfinding.h, we have explanations. Functions in this file help find a path from A to B. Definitions. Step. One movement step, which brings us from one tile to an adjacent one. Turn. Turns spent to reach a tile. Since movement rules involve randomness, we use different turn modes to get an estimate of this number. And then moves left, the move points left upon reaching a tile. So once you get to a tile, how many movements do you have remaining as opposed to moving in the left direction? A path is a list of steps which leads from the start to the end. We have a movement cost for a single step, an extra cost of a single tile. It's always positive. The intended meaning for extra cost is how much we want to avoid this tile. Okay, and then we have things like tile behavior. Total MC, total movement cost, total extra cost, etc. Best path. First of all, it should be noted that pathfinding is not about finding shortest paths, but about finding the best paths. The best paths, okay? So we have like some concept of terrain. For example, you probably don't want to go over a mountain. I haven't really seen any like rough terrain type stuff in this game, but you also probably don't want to like walk through an enemy's military camp. So it's not about, that's a good point. It's not about shortest path, which I forget whether A star can be modified so it's not just shortest. But you want to be able to avoid things that are not just like a block of stone where you can't go through it at all. There's like trade-offs through different paths. Some might be short, but might get you shot. Some might be long, but unlikely to be dangerous. And the above setup allows us to find elegant solutions to rather involved questions. A good example would be designing a road from A to B. The future road should be as short as possible, but out of many shortest roads, we want to select the one which is fastest to construct. And so I skipped over a bunch of stuff. So how long is it? How dangerous is it? Or how much does it cost in terms of resources? So that's the extra cost, I think. And the best solution is to utilize an existing road. To solve the problem, we simply declare that MC between any two tiles should be move cost road. EC of any tile should be the time to construct a road there. In some cases, we would like to impose extra restrictions on the paths we want to consider. For example, a trireme might want to never enter a deep sea. A chariot would like to find paths going to enemy cities, but not going through them. This can be achieved through an additional tile behavior callback, which would return TB ignore for tiles that we don't want to visit, or TB don't leave for tiles that we wouldn't be able to leave, at least alive. Dangerous tiles are those for which we don't want to end a turn. If the danger callback is specified, it is used to determine which tiles are dangerous. No path that ends a turn on such tile will ever be considered. There's also support for fuel, and thus indirectly for air units. Okay. And then so the formulae are for calculating total MC, given particular tile behavior, as total MC is turn plus 1 times move rate minus move lefts. For calculating total CC, I don't know what CC is, but total CC is PF turn factor times total MC plus move rate times total EC. Pathfinding can be used in two major modes. We know where we want to go and need the best path there. How many miles to Dublin? 3 score and tensor. Okay, etc. We know what we want and need to go to the nearest one. For example, where's the nearest pub? In the first case, we use pf map move cost and pf map path and pf map position. In the second case, we use pf map iterate to iterate through all the tiles in the order of increased distance and break when we found what we're looking for. Okay. That's actually super useful. And I don't know if we actually see an algorithm here. So these structs are presumably like just kind of recording data for all that Boolean omniscience. Do we care if the tile is visible? So there's some callback here. They talked about the callbacks for some of the dangerous stuff, or like movement restriction, like a small boat can't go into the deep sea. This is a jumbo callback, which overrides all previous ones. It takes care of everything. Zoc, known, cost, etc. And this is just the header. So I don't think we're going to learn a lot from looking at the C file now that we've seen kind of what their design is. I think the design is the important bit, and then it's mainly a matter of kind of implementing that. But we'll scroll through the implementation. Specific PF normal, etc. Hi. Thank you, Kevin. Kevin says, my videos are amazing. I appreciate that. It's very nice to hear. Okay, so this is, this algorithm is probably interesting. But this deep into the video, when I was mainly looking to get the kind of simulation stuff looked at, I don't think I'm not gonna like do a deep reading of this. This is too complicated, I think, for most people to implement. I have a feeling that this took. It's not complicated to implement an initial implementation, but I have a feeling that something like this, that's this long, with this many structs that have like short names, I have a feeling this evolved over time, or was copied from something that had evolved over time, maybe from another game or from a paper or something. But there's just too much here to really get a feel for quickly. But the design itself, the thing that we were just looking at, I think makes a lot of sense and is very clear. And so that's just a matter of banging out enough the right code to implement that specification. And ideally, there would be lots of tests to make sure that you've done it right, but I don't know if there are. I didn't think I saw a bunch of tests for AI, but maybe there were and I didn't notice them, or maybe they're in another directory. Here's pathfinding.c. I don't think I want the C file, but maybe here's pathfinding.h. The functions in this file help to find a path from A to B. That's not the one we were just looking at, is it? Yeah, it is. Okay. Okay. That's pathfinding. I thought pathfinding was a helper function for the thing we just looked at, but that is the function we just looked at. The file, rather. So CM, I don't know what CM is. We have a descriptor of the goal, CM parameter. Minimal surplus, max growth, require happy CM result. Aborted, found a valid disorder, happy. Maybe city something. We'll try to meet the requirement and fill out the result. Oh, no, this is cost. I think this is related to the cost stuff. No? There's some cache stuff. We're clearing a cache. Do we have the implementation? Is it CityMap? CityMap's another file, though. Terms used. Okay, so we get more information in the C file. Stats, food, shields, trade, luxury science, and gold. Happy state disorder, tile. Unlike the original CM code, which used a dynamic programming approach. Okay, so there's some dynamic programming. Where? I'm not sure. This code uses a branch and bound approach. The DP approach allowed caching, but it was hard to guarantee the correctness of the cache, so it was usually tossed and recomputed. Okay, the branch and bound approach also uses a very simple greedy search, whereas the DP approach required a lot of pre-computing, and it appears to be slightly faster. We use highly specific knowledge about how the city computes its stats. All right. I still don't know what CM stands for. Maybe the CM is in pathfinding. So MC is movement cost. City something. Did not find a CM solution in 25,000 iterations for a city name. AI city or human player city under governor control can find a suitable worker placement with reasonable effort. City management, maybe? Citizen management? Yeah, I think maybe M is management. Let's see if we can find the word management anywhere. It seems to be something about placing maybe stuff within cities. The purpose of this module is to manage the citizens of a city. Thank you, Casper. The caller has to provide a goal, struct CM parameter, which determines in which way the citizens are allocated and placed. The model will also avoid disorder. The plan defines a minimal surplus. The module will try to get the required surplus. If there are citizens free after allocation of the minimal surplus, these citizens will get arranged to maximize the weighted sum of the surplus of each type. Okay, so that makes sense that used to be that's a sensible to do dynamic programming there. It sounds like they've switched to branch and bound, but this is for managing citizens of a city. Whew, I don't know why I didn't just look at that comment first, but that's where we are. Okay, and then city map is something about a city map. Maybe just this is the AI's map of the city, like their internal representation. We have a comment here in the C file again. City map, reserve space for city. The city map is a large int double array that corresponds to the Freeciv main map. For each tile, it stores 3 different and exclusive values in a single int. A positive int tells you how many cities can use this tile. a crowdedness indicator. A value of 0 indicates that the tile is presently unused or available. Unused and available, and a negative means that this tile is occupied and reserved by some city. In this case, the value gives you the negative of the ID of the city or unit that has reserved the tile. Okay, so this is just some map that I guess the AI uses since we're in AI core to know where it can go. Okay, so it can update the map as the game plays on. It can look stuff up rather than having to iterate over the tile to search for things. Then a caravan is what? An advisor for using caravans optimally. The parameter gives what we're optimizing for. Use init default if you don't have anything better to set it to. The optimization does not take into account other caravans in transit. It also knows nothing about moving caravans except what pathfinding will tell it. Ferries, for instance, aren't handled here. Okay. So this is something about planning caravans. How many turns to consider when optimizing? We have some horizon. We have a discount factor. What to consider: the immediate windfall when the caravan reaches the destination, the trade, the reduction in cost of helping build a wonder. Okay. A new trade route may break old trade routes. Account for the loss of old trade routes. Okay. So all of this these days, you might do it in regular, ordinary AI, but this is is presumably standard like programming techniques for finding optimal solutions for things like planning problems. I don't know if they tell us what algorithm they're using. Check for legality. Human readable name of the blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So this is cool. These look like interesting AI algorithm implementations that are kind of like classic. And if you're interested in that sort of thing, I think this is a good place to look. And then I think that's about it. This AI support, which is just like what? Like City Goldworth? Stuff that's not as cool. All right. I think that's it for Freeciv. I've learned a lot, I guess, about how they manage things. A lot of the code seems like, so first of all, a lot of the rules are in the rule sets, and that leaves space for most of the code to mainly be about reading information from the rule sets. There's some stuff we saw there, like the stuff about the diplomacy. There's a logic to that. It's not just about what values you set things for, but for other things like taxation, it seems like the way they go is they have a general algorithm for taxation, and that's parameterized by some numbers. And then Civ 1 might use one set of numbers, Civ 2 and 3 might use another set of numbers, and there might be variations of civilization because this is open source and you can do whatever you want. So there might be variations where you define your own parameters and can play them. And then there's a bunch of stuff that we didn't see, like how does the server work? How does the client work? It's an interesting question, like what exactly does the server need to send to the client versus what can the client manage on its own? I assume that this supports multiplayer across the network, but I'm not 100% positive. So there's an interesting question there of like, how do you optimally send all that information? We didn't see any of that, but we did take a quick look at the AI algorithms, and it looks like they have a very thoughtful approach to handling the question of how do you optimally do something like move or decide how to build a road when you're doing it in a game where you have to consider not just resource cost, but also like, are your enemies going to try to like destroy you as you're doing it? Or is your ship going to break if you take it into 2 dBFSC? So those are all, I think, really interesting questions that a lot of other games don't have to worry about. So it's a good place to learn about all that sort of stuff. And so that's all for me. Thanks for watching. Yeah. And Casper's saying it's surprisingly clean and neat codebase. It is really clean and neat. I think this codebase goes back to the 90s. I don't know how much of it is original, but it is really clean compared to a lot of the other 90s code we've seen. A lot of the other 90s code we've seen, I think, is we've kind of skewed toward like like a lot of the old GNU utilities that are really going, I guess, for like speed and performance. And those codes are that code is a little bit dense and hairy. And this really felt a lot like a modern code base. In fact, I didn't even notice it until you mentioned it. All right, thanks so much, and thanks for watching.